Happy Father's Day. My father's name was Ignacio Magaloni Salazar. When he was 13 years old, his father, a poet, moved his family from Mexico City to an isolated fisherman village called La Ribera de Tampico Alto in Veracruz in order to make it economically feasible to continue writing. The move proved to be the most formative event in my father's life. When I was a child living in Tampico, Tamaulipas, and later, when I was a teen visiting from the US, we would reconnect with our family in La Ribera. It was difficult to reach. You had to cross the wide Pánuco River, which creates the border between the states of Tamaulipas and Veracruz. I remember excitedly braving small wooden ferries full to overflowing with people, chickens, and wares. We would wobble across the water from the bustling banks of Tamaulipas to the green, wild banks of Veracruz, where we would climb into taxis waiting on unpaved roads to weave and bounce us to our sultry, tropical destination. My father became a fisherman when his family moved to La Ribera, and so loved and integrated himself with the community that to this day, when I remember him, I always see him beaming with pride, paddle in hand at the seat nearest the stern of one of the classic green skiffs he used to fish in. Maybe because he was the son of a poet, my father was an amazing storyteller. My favorite story was the one about the time that he and his friends got caught in a hurricane during a fishing expedition. They would travel far out into the Gulf of Mexico and would be out to sea for days at a time on a fishing vessel that had their small fishing skiffs attached to its sides with ropes. The day the hurricane caught up to them, they were returning home with a full haul, which was essential for the means and sustenance of the entire village. The waves got so high that they feared they would lose the main vessel if they didn't release their boats, which were destabilizing it as they tumbled about in the roiling waters. But these were not rich men. Their nets and their lures were made by hand. Each boat was hard to come by and represented a livelihood. The idea of losing even one was agonizing. The waves got higher and higher. So my father and his friends did the impossible. They cut the ropes and jumped into the water to try to catch their boats. My father described being in the giant waves trying to reach his boat. He remembers seeing it above him when the waves lifted it, and then looking down at the boat when the waves lifted him. He swam with everything he had as he attempted to time the rhythm of the waves in order to throw himself into the little boat when he was above it. He succeeded. And then the real ride began. He lay down in the hull and held on for dear life. Eventually, the hurricane subsided, leaving my exhausted father and the little boat on a shore far from the village. It took him a couple of days to work his way back home. Thankfully, all of the fishermen, the main vessel, and the essential hull were saved. I never tired of listening to my father tell this story. Even now, I marvel at the quality of the love and the unshakable commitment to the village that elicited the type of courage that these men showed. I witnessed my father's tenacity and determination throughout my life. When his source of income dried up in Mexico, my father left my mother, me, and my 3 brothers with our maternal grandmother in Tampico and came to the U.S. to look for work. After almost a year, he called for us. I remember the evening he picked us up. We arrived on a Greyhound bus with only a few mismatched suitcases and some treats that my mother's family had given us for the journey. And there he was. The second I saw my father, I knew that everything would be all right. Like the canoes in his story, he had to cut us loose for a while. But we were always in his sight. And as he wrapped his arms around us, we knew that he would never let us go. He was our main vessel, full to the brim with hope. Feliz Dia de los Padres, Papi, wherever you are.